Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Today is Thursday. It is September 5th, 2024. Our goal here is to review today's market generated information in a holistic fashion. We are intimately following the auctions narrative of both ES and NQ. If we have time, we'll theorize and add additional commentary towards the end. We did speculate in the market today. Please see our uploaded recording. It contains my real-time analysis. We use these archives as a tool for our professional development. All right, perfect. Let's get started. So we'll start off with our narrative and our summary questions. So we need to understand where the market is coming from so we have a better idea of what price was trying to accomplish. What was the goal? And for us to understand that, we need to look at the economic calendar because we had a slew of data just this week in general of Labor Day. But Thursday, we had our ADP, which typically shows up on a Wednesday, but the market was closed for Labor Day on Monday, so it came out today. 5:15, 5:30 for initial jobless claims, productivity, unit labor costs. We had our PMIs for 6:45, and then the actual ISM services for today at 7. So a fair amount of data, and we had Broadcom reporting at the end of the day. So we know that we have some data here. So the market really wanted to, looking at the S&P 500, don't forget that we are coming from, a bull trend. We're still higher highs, higher lows on the maximum time frame. But on the weekly, came into some resistance. This 2-week balance zone that we've been talking about for the longest was finally closed under. So with Monday being the close below the structure, we had a compression day for Tuesday on higher volume and even more negative delta. So where we're coming from a potential breakout of a 2-week balance range, and we're accepting prices lower. So as of right now, sellers are in control on the intermediate time frame, as this is a higher low from what we can see. So sellers' goal was to keep price below the 5,600. So about the majority of that range and about halfway of this impulse candle. Especially with the slew of data coming, even with non-farm payrolls, the more that they can push price lower, that'll give them a little cushion to maybe play a retest on this 5,600 with an attempt to go back down. Versus if sellers let the price gravitate to this 5,600, non-farm payrolls were open somewhere in this middle, and then it's really a crapshoot. So sellers are going to be in control and stay in control. They really wanted to have more price acceptance slower, ideally make a lower high and a lower low. And that's precisely what happened on the S&P 500, who was a bit weaker compared to the NASDAQ. So again, NASDAQ has been weaker, just overall much more slanted to the downside than the S&P 500. That's technology, NVIDIA leading us down. But we didn't see the same response here. We did have a higher high, and I believe this was a higher low just by a wee bit. So again, sellers, I wouldn't say that they failed, but definitely not an A plus, just looking at this superficially. So really not too much for the bear case on the NASDAQ, but just solid day, just keeping price below the 50%, ideally below that 0.25% for that impulse candle. So just nice overall from the sellers, that is. And we're not going to bring up the buyers too much because the buyers are at the disadvantage as of right now. Once they show something to give us something to talk about, then we can put it from their perspective again. But as of right now, the intermediate, the daily, and so far the overnight sessions have been sell pressured, bearish. And even when we do have some upsides to the RTH, we're seeing a bearish finish. But we'll look at the context of today shortly. But yeah, outside of that, not too much from a geopolitical standpoint. We talked about the different catalysts. let's get a better idea with this market generated information to see how they responded. So let's look at the NASDAQ because we want to see what it looked like for the stats for the actual delta and the volume. So the max that we got up to was 2100, and that was really near these lows for the delta. But we finished negative 2300. So a push above, and sellers finished the fight, pushing it back within yesterday's range. Volume is still fairly high relative to what we've been seeing over the past weeks, but not the highest from what we're used to. Not too much trading in the higher sections of this candle. Majority of volume was done towards the middle to the lower third. Really not too much to say. 320 point range, not much activity. Just another compression day for the most part. And we're still bear flagging. Looking at the weaker asset of today, who's been sturdier throughout this trend up and during this consolidation phase. Something to note that we are getting a bit weaker for the market overall. So we'll look at this sector tracker and see where this came from exactly and why this information is showing this way. Again, we were negative on the delta, but we ended up getting plus 12 max, and this was primarily in the earlier in the morning. Sellers really pushed it a little later in the day, but just interesting delta to see. So positive here, positive on the other side, I believe, or is it negative? No, yeah, it's negative for the Nasdaq. So just a little baffled by the delta, but the volume is still increasing. We're still at 1.6 million rather, which is still way more than we've seen over the past several weeks. Same situation, not much volume near the highs, but they attempted definitely a full body candle here as far as the volume. Just a lot of wouldn't say price discovery, but it was a lot of trading going on here. There were some attempts, but we'll look at the specifics with the market profile and the candles. About 70 points of range, nice overall compared to what we've been seeing. So solid day for price and the activity. Okay, so let's look at the sector tracker and let's see where exactly all this came from. So we finish with the S&P 500 negative 30 basis points. The only green being communications at 30 and consumer discretionary at 1.1. So primarily this is going to be Amazon and Tesla who really saved the market today. They did their best. And though technology finished in third at negative 15 basis points, they did a solid job here. NVIDIA just didn't fuck up, basically. So if they would have started to tank, this would have been a much uglier day. But overall, decent showing from technology as a whole, about even for Microsoft, um, up 1% for NVIDIA and about 0.7 for Apple. Everyone else just kind of crapped the bed today. So not the best sign for breadth. And we haven't seen that recently. We've seen everyone do fairly well. So this may be a bit of a hint that there may be some risk off as we head into non-farm payrolls for tomorrow. All right, so let's head to the market profile for a little more context. All right, so there was definitely some singles that were hit for the NASDAQ. Let's double check for the ES. Yes, the ES, this is today's candle. It's composite. This is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So for this session here, which is today, we ended up hitting these singles from 8:15, and that was from as we opened kind of in the cold range. We shot up earlier in the RTH session, broke the RTH low, and kind of hovered around here just for a few minutes and broke below these 5506s. Pretty much just destroyed these singles. Fairly simple. Not much else really to report here. Multi-distributed day. Just a little crevice in here. high normal is normal-ish kind of day. The majority of the time was spent above, but the majority of the volume was done towards the lows, and this was the buyers, as we saw on the footprint. But we'll look at the intraday footprint later. So we'll do some cleaning up of this and clean up these singles. We'll see if we can find any more area of interest based off this price action, because I really want to level up in here with between these 50s and these 70s. But it's really not too much to see. We can let's a little peek at this. So we just have a little higher high, a lower high here, and then this pivot here, and then just where the start of these singles. So it's just a big space between these 50s and the high 60s. But that's a conversation for another day. I just want to bring that to our attention. So not too much. Singles have been eaten up. We'll clean that up. And you can see we're still bear flagging B-shaped profile. All the volume is done towards the lows. Once we had our 100-point discount, we are staying down here and accepting these prices. So that is information. Looking at the same thing here for the NQ. We had this big drop off of, was it 500, 600, 700 points? Same situation here. Now we're bear flagging here. You can see all the volume is done here near the lows. Same situation as we've been talking about. We're starting to fill in some of these gaps for NQ. But let's go back because we didn't look at the composite for the ES. So we are here near the 5500s. So we're really just filling in this low volume node here. And this low volume node goes down to the 5520s. So yeah, just a lot of volume has been spent here. So if we were to put these together, this is filling up this exact space. So it's going to be a lot of work to get under this zone here, this contract premium, which is basically 5450s. So we have about another 60 points-ish from where we are now at the 20s to get below this contract premium zone where we have a lot of singles, and we may see we have another crevice down here, so we may see some possibly a magnet to go down here and test these levels, which is the 5400s and below. So again, we'll pick up back on the NQ. They're filling in their gaps from August as of right now. After we had the big, the steep sell-off, we're starting to fill in these gaps. As we mentioned, there are no singles here for today. This is about a B-shaped profile, if you will, but kind of like a normal, just like a low normal day. Really not too much going on there. No singles around here. They did terminate these singles from earlier in the week from 9-3. So we'll go ahead and clean those up there. And we'll merge that day. So again, you see just a B-shaped profile, big discount. Now we're curling sideways. This is exactly what the bears want to see. They're looking for a break under this 900 level and test some of this pass, this lowered auction areas for the composite and for August. All right. All right, so we'll do our quick look now at the higher time frame candles, 138. 138 minutes, a little over 2 hours, same situation. We had our big steep sell-off, and you can see price tried to get above and failed, tried to get above and failed. Same situation, we're looking at a market profile, we're just looking at candle forms, higher time frames. You see these singles from S&P being eaten up. Tried, got rejected. Tried, got engulfed. Much a bit weaker on the shorter time frame for the S&P 500. Looking at the 65-minute candles for the NQ, we went up, we went down. Got in no real action at these highs. That's pretty much all she wrote. And then we just really just went sideways for the remainder of the day. Up, down, sideways. That's all. You can look at the volume was decent on that first hour. A lot of pushing with this with the buyer delta, and then the sell side delta really kicked up as people got liquidated, especially once we broke the low. Had a nice bit of volume here, but just to break through and get to that point, it was this midpoint of this candle was a really forceful through. A lot of effort from the sellers pushed through, and then they kept pushing. Definitely liquidation and new money shorts. And pretty much we just floated sideways for the remainder of the day. Broadcom earnings did come out, but it was not too impactful. Same situation here, buyer delta, sell delta, and then we just close sideways for the remainder of the day. Same situation. Don't have to spend too much time here on the intraday for a consolidation day. Not much was done. Looking at the S&P 500 from a candle format, again, we do have some context. Context being on the Sunday, Monday, it's a holiday. Bear flag, steep sell-off Tuesday, our first day back from Labor Day. Close, and we've been bear flagging this entire time. Bears have been doing a solid job by keeping the trading within these ranges in the overnights, and even able to thwart tries from the buyers to pull out and use as support. It's not happening. Everything is being stuck within these ranges here. No real urgency. So as of right now, these prices above these 55, 60s, and 70s are considered expensive. All right, let's see. Overnight session, literally just chop sideways. We were going to open up near the bottom of the range, but we had a SOC. The data at the 530 ended up propelling us upwards, tested a little bit below, found a nice buy leg to get us to this midpoint for the prior IB mid. As we open up again, this is S&P 500. As we open up, they're a little bit weaker. Two-way trading, up and down, test off that open. This was a nice save. Watched it in real time. Ended up closing the bracket towards the high point. 7 a.m. data propelled us higher above prior day's IB high, and we were threatening the high from the prior day. But even with the big impulse candle that we saw, there was no continuation for it. Loss of confidence, go back into the IB high. We ended up pulling back right above that original SOC zone. Try one more attempt, and then failed again to break the former day's HOD. We ended up trending down lower again. That bull candle was engulfed, by the way. Inside bar, and then we just trend lower until we got up under this 5S, and then it just became more of a steep sell-off. And that was pretty much, that's all for the day. We saw the rise up, we saw the engulfing down, and then just bear flag for the remainder of the day. Yeah, this ended up being like higher highs and higher lows, but not really much was done on either side. They did close below their IB low, which is important. This is not the case for the NASDAQ, who them too traded in a coil pattern for the overnight session. And they were trading below their IB low. They actually they were actually, I think this was like a double, this was like a point away from breaking the prior day's low. So excellent save for NQ. SOC, same drift up, but much more impulsive. Open drive, the open is basically the IB low. Pushed above, had a little two-way trading once we got above the prior day's IB mid. Gunning for yesterday's high. They got it, pulled back really hard within the second bracket after the 7 a.m. ISM data. One more leg, completely burst through and hold, and then they got engulfed, just like the ES. Inside bar, and then trend lower. Except they didn't trade too much below their IB low, and they close near or between their IB mid and their IB low. So a better performance for the bulls on the NQ. Bears did a good job on the ES. Technology held it down today. This could have been a lot worse for the buyers, that is. All right, so again, we looked pretty deeply in how this went. We had this open drive. Again, this open drive was from these lows for NQ. And then this was more of an open test drive for the ES, trying to find some support near these lows. We had the SOCs, which we've already discussed. I believe the one or two moves of the day would be the failure above on the ES, failure to get above the prior high while NQ was filling. This was engulfed. You had your opportunity here on this inside bar. Once we broke and we couldn't stay above this open, you had a few more touches near this IB low. Notice no closes above this 5S, 5 smoothing average. Possible trade here. Well, possibly entry here. Possibly add to the trade here. You see the pullback. And maybe here once more. Just a thought. We wouldn't look too long in a situation like this, given the context from the intermediate and the dailies. Same trade idea for the NQ. However, wouldn't look too much to sell here on the NQ given their strength. But again, we won't get too speculative here. I'm trying to work in like like the move of the day for the most part. But we'll work on that a little bit. All right, so just to go back to our narrative standpoint questions. So how good of a job did everyone do? I think the sellers, or given the data that we have, the sellers left much to be desired on tech, but did a fairly good job on the S&P 500, keeping prices lower and making fresh lows. They're still continuing their one-time framing lower at this point. One-time framing lower after swallowing the whole 2-week balance range. So solid job for the bears on the ES, not so much on technology. We don't have anything to say about the bulls at the moment, though we do see some buyer delta. Some buyers are definitely trying to step in. We do have non-farm payrolls tomorrow, so be out on lookout for that. Things make it a bit volatile. I think we'll just need a little more data to understand what's going to happen. Do remember that we are trading within this huge, not huge, but this balance range after this extended drop. Trading between the 55.70s and the 54, let's call it 90s. Non-farm payrolls. Curious if this is going to be a situation that takes us out of this range, whether it's to the high side or the low side. We want to see if it's going to be some continuation and if it's sustained. Yeah, let's have a good night. Well, I'll see you guys in the morning. Thanks again for being here.